everyone to the third session of GDSC Banasthali Vidyapith GitHub Bootcamp. I am Anushka Srivastava, a member of GDSC Banasthali Vidyapith. I have along with me my teammate Ayushma Sharma today.
Hello everyone, I am Ayushma Sharma, a GDSC team member, and today we both will help you to enhance your knowledge of GitHub and make you take a step forward in excelling the art of becoming a software developer.
I would like to mention that we already have 2 sessions of the GitHub Bootcamp live on the GDSC YouTube channel. If you haven't watched them yet, I would request you to please do so to understand today's session in the most efficient manner. We have 3 more sessions in store filled with knowledge and guidance for you to master the GitHub skills. Objective of today's session are to understand what is a repository, how can we create our own repository, and at the end we'll see how we can push a project from a local system to our GitHub account. Repositories is similar to a folder, and a GitHub repository becomes a folder that is available online on the cloud for the people to download, access, and contribute. This folder contains the code files of the project, which can now be used by other people. We can understand this with an example. If you are working on a project and someone wants to contribute to your project, then you can share your GitHub repository with him. Or if you are working on someone else's project and a person gets interested in the same project, then the repositories are shared among the interested people. A GitHub repository plays a vital role among the developers to develop something easy and make it available to the whole world. Types of repositories in GitHub. GitHub provides 2 types of repositories for the users to choose and perform. Public repository, and the second is private repository. A public repository is the one which is open and available for everyone. Public repositories can be used for open source projects. Anyone can see it on GitHub by either searching or redirecting through a link. Making a repository public will include the risk of providing your code to everyone. Since anyone can see the repository, anyone can download the code and use it in his project too. Although referring to this process as a risk would be wrong, since the majority of the greatest projects and software on GitHub were public repositories only so that the people from all around the world can come and contribute. A private repository is the one that can be accessed only by the repository owner and individuals with whom the repository has been shared. Private repositories can be used for programs that are confidential for you at that moment and you do not want to share them. They are mainly used by organizations and teams who do not want any outside interference and still want to develop and contribute with their team. Now I'll hand over to Ayushma to make us learn how can we create a repository in our GitHub account and upload our project present in the local system to the created repository.
Okay everyone, so let's start with a hands-on session. At first we are going to create the repository and then we will learn how to push our personal project to GitHub. So let's get started. So the first step is to sign into GitHub. I am already signed in. So for creating a repository, you can click here on this button, create repository, or you can go to this plus sign and click on new repository button. Now here give your repository a name. I am calling it as project. So now you can add a description to your repository describing what the project is about, and it's an optional field. After this you can choose the repository visibility. We have discussed this in our presentation, the public and the private repositories. I am keeping this as public. Now here we are getting options to initialize the readme and get ignore files. So what they basically are. A readme file is basically used to communicate important information about our project. It contains instructions or documentations that we want to share about our repository. And the get ignore file, it's a file in our repository's root directory to tell Git which files and directories to ignore when you make a commit. It's usually used to avoid committing files from our working directory that aren't useful to our collaborators. So I'm not initializing these files in my repository. And then I'm clicking on the create repository button to create a repository. Now my repository has been created. Now let's get started with pushing our personal project to GitHub. I have already created this repository and I will show you by pushing my project to this repository. So the first step is to initialize Git in the project folder. For that, at first, navigate to the folder you would like to add. These are the files, or this folder is what I want to add in my repository, what I want to push in my repository. So right click and open Git Bash. Make sure that your local repository is the current working directory. Now let me make it a bit bigger. Now, at first we will initialize the Git repository by running the command git init. This step creates a hidden .git directory in our project folder, which the Git software recognizes and uses to store all the metadata and version history for the project. Now we need to add the files to the Git index, and for that we will run the command git add -a. The git add command is used to tell Git which files to include in a commit, and the -a argument, it means include all. So basically this process is called staging. Now our project is marked and ready for its first commit. So what basically a commit is? A commit is a snapshot of the history of the changes to the file. Now we will see by committing the added files. For that we need to run the command git commit -m, and in the double quotes you can put any message. I am here putting added code. Yeah, so this git commit command creates a new commit with all the files that have been added, and this -m, this message, it includes alongside the commit, and this can be used for future reference to understand what the commit actually does. Means I have added here added code, and I will press enter. Now you can see here all the files has been committed. Now it's time to add new remote origin, and for this we need to run the command git remote add origin, and here comes the URL of our repository that we have created. So go back to the repository. This is the URL of our repository. Copy it from here, go to git bash, paste it here. So press enter. In Git, a remote refers to a remote version of the same repository, which is typically on a server somewhere. And this origin is the default name Git gives to a remote server. So git remote add origin is instructing Git to add the URL of the remote server for this repository. Now it's time to push the changes in our local repository up to the remote repository that we have specified as the origin. For this, we need to run the command git push -u -f origin master. Now press enter. Yeah, with this command there are few things to understand. This -f flag here stands for force. This will automatically override everything in the remote repository, and this -u sets the remote origin as the default. Later, this will let you easily do git push and git pull without having to specify an origin, since we always want GitHub in this case, right? So now we are all set to track the changes in our repository. Go back to the repository and refresh the page. And now we can see that our project is now pushed to GitHub. I hope that you all have understood this. If you have any doubts, then we are coming live at 7. We are adding a Google Meet for clearing your doubts. So be there if you have any doubts. So over to you, Anushka.
It was a well-explained demonstration by Ayushma. Thank you. Now, this is it for today's session. Now you can use your GitHub skills to contribute in our ongoing open source project called Code Crossroad. The link for the same is provided in the chat box. Also, the registration forms for the 30-day of Google Cloud are now open, so hurry to book your slot and own a chance to win the amazing Google swags. For updates on the upcoming opportunities, follow us on our social media handles. I would encourage all the attendees to practice the taught contents themselves and be back tomorrow to attend the next session of the GitHub Bootcamp organized by the Google Developers Club Banasthali Vidyapith at 6 p.m. tomorrow. Thank you.